Newcastle United is going through one of those moments where everything seems to change quietly. But the impacts could be huge. Behind the scenes at St. James Park, important decisions are being made that may redefine the club's direction for the coming seasons. Without much fanfare, a key figure has just been taken off the board. The departure appears to have been smooth, planned, but there is much more behind this change than the fans might imagine. And yes, this will directly affect the team's transfers in the next window. Imagine being on the brink of one of the most crucial transfer windows in recent years, with sky-high expectations, and suddenly a key figure decides to step back. We're not talking about a player, but someone who had been making strategic decisions, handling negotiations, bids, signings, and even the departures of important squad members. Something in the air already hinted at internal tensions. And now we have confirmation. The club's internal structure is being reshaped. By the way, if you follow Newcastle and want to stay up to date with everything happening behind the scenes, this is the perfect time to subscribe to the channel. Here we bring you information clearly, credibly, and with that special touch every fan understands. So go ahead and hit the subscribe button below. Not only does it help the channel grow, but it also ensures you won't miss any updates like this. And believe me, what's coming next is set to stir the fans' emotions. Back to the current situation, it's impossible to ignore the movement happening in the club's corridors. Talks were discreet, meetings took place away from the press, and the decision was practically made at the start of the month. For some, it was a surprise. For others, the departure was expected, especially after recent statements that seemed to reveal growing dissatisfaction. But what few anticipated was that the responsibility for leading the club's transfer policy would now fall into the hands of a figure well known to the supporters. Paul Mitchell's departure from the role of Newcastle United's sporting director was officially confirmed and took place by mutual consent. Less than a year after arriving to replace Dan Ashworth, who moved to Manchester United, Mitchell is leaving the club. According to the statement, manager Howe will oversee all recruitment policy until a new director is appointed. This information was released by the club itself and confirmed by sources such as Sky Sports and The Athletic, strengthening the credibility of the details. Paul Mitchell, aged 43, took up the post in July 2024, at a time when the club was still trying to stabilize under the Profit and Sustainability Rules (PSR). His short spell at the helm of football decisions was marked by financial difficulties, Premier League demands, and the need for quick and painful adjustments, including the forced sales of Elliot Anderson and Yankuba Minna, to avoid harsher sanctions like points deductions. It was an intense few months, with extremely limited room for maneuver. Despite all these challenges, Mitchell tried to enable signings that fitted the club's profile. The interest in Mark Gahey, Crystal Palace's defender, was public and persistent but ended in disappointment. Mitchell started showing frustration with the transfer structure early in the season, going so far as to say in an interview with journalists that the current policy was inadequate. Strong words that surprised many inside Newcastle and, in a way, foreshadowed the outcome we see now. The situation becomes even more curious when we remember that, ironically, Mitchell would have had more freedom this summer. The club could finally move more aggressively in the market after 3 consecutive restricted windows. Manager Howe recently stated there was no reason to believe Newcastle couldn't strengthen the squad. In other words, the timing seemed perfect for Mitchell to leave a lasting mark on the team, but he chose to leave. The big question now is, why? In part of the official statement, Paul Mitchell says he is leaving at the right time and thanks the board, the fans, the players, and the coaching staff. He also mentions his close relationship with Darren Eales, the club's current CEO, who will step down in September after being diagnosed with blood cancer. The connection between these two departures may not be a coincidence. Mitchell and Eales had worked together previously at Tottenham, and Eales' imminent exit appears to have been a decisive factor in Mitchell's decision to take a different path too. For those who haven't subscribed to the channel yet, here's another reason to hit that button. With every new twist, we bring you everything behind the headlines, context, insider info, and analysis made for those who truly follow Newcastle closely. With changes in leadership, the next transfer window promises to be unpredictable, and this is where you'll understand every move. Don't miss out. With Mitchell's departure, Howe now becomes the main person responsible for recruitment decisions. This is significant. Howe has already shown strong influence over Newcastle's sporting project, but now his autonomy will be even greater. The board's trust in his work is clear, and this new role shows he will be central to rebuilding and strengthening the squad. A huge responsibility, especially for a manager who also needs to focus on results on the pitch. The decision to put Howe in charge of transfers is also an attempt to maintain stability at the club. With 2 key figures leaving important roles within a short time, the owners chose not to rush the appointment of a new sporting director. Instead, they preferred to take their time, relying on Howe's experience and direct involvement to keep cohesion in planning for the upcoming season. It's a move of trust, but also risk. Inside the club, the feeling is that Howe knows the squad's strengths and weaknesses better than anyone. His active participation in recent seasons puts him in a prime position to make the right choices, And with the club back in the Champions League, decisions need to be surgical. Newcastle will have to strengthen its defense, add depth to midfield, and secure attacking options worthy of continental competition. All this without repeating mistakes from previous years and with no room for fresh frustrations in the market. The transition has already begun. However, reports indicate internal meetings are happening daily to define priority targets, desired profiles, and budget limits. Howe already has names in mind, and according to Sky Sports sources, initial contacts with player representatives are underway. Although no names have been officially confirmed, insiders suggest the club is eyeing experienced players with European competition pedigree, indicating a more mature and competitive profile. It's worth remembering that with Mitchell's exit, Newcastle faces an opportunity to redefine its business model in the market. The next sporting director will have the task of building a more sustainable transfer policy aligned with the PSR's reality, but without sacrificing competitiveness. This appointment could determine the club's future over the next 5 years, but don't be surprised if well-known names from European football emerge as candidates for the role in the coming weeks. We are witnessing a new chapter at Newcastle United. With Paul Mitchell's departure and Eddie Howe's temporary leadership and recruitment, the club is starting a new cycle, full of challenges and expectations. The coming months will be crucial, both in the market and behind the scenes. And you'll follow every detail right here. If you haven't subscribed yet, do it now this way. You guarantee access to all the news, always based on reliable sources like Sky Sports, The Athletic, and Newcastle United themselves. See you in the next video.